Welcome to Relentless Pursuit with Marjorie Dudley. Real conversations with entrepreneurs, business owners, and leaders who refuse to settle. This isn't about overnight success. It's about the decisions, discipline, setbacks, and standards that shape extraordinary results. If you're building something that matters, you're in the right place.
Welcome to Relentless Pursuit with Marjorie Dudley. I am so excited to have our guest today, Lee Nugent. Lee Nugent is, I'm proud to say, a personal friend now, but we met in the real estate investing space probably a year ago. Lee is a real estate investor. He's a private money lender. And through his business, he's lent out over $7 million, and he has a personal portfolio of over $4.5 million. So if you've ever been curious about real estate investing, Lee is your guy. What's interesting about Lee and where I think I want to have him share with us today is he didn't start that way. He didn't start with a silver spoon in his mouth. He didn't start with a massive portfolio. He's self-made. He built this thing from scratch. So Lee, thank you so much for being here. Why don't you start off and just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started?
Yeah. Well, first, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. And yeah, it's been great getting to know you and Jason over the last year and, just really kind of seeing what you guys are doing as well. As far as how we got started, the year was 2015 and it was a cold, rainy night. No. All right. So we don't need to do all that. But what we did was we started with $6,000. That's really the biggest focus point on that because over the years, I've met so many people that say that they don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars to start, or they don't have this, they don't have that.
So
And,
true.
a lot of the times it's what do you have? Do you have the grit? Do you have determination? Okay, then great. The money can be figured out. I've had investors that I did a Facebook Live one time and explained Gary V's, $5 to $1,000 video that I saw
Mhm.
one time. And it was in essence, you take $5 and you go to a garage sale. You buy $25 worth of stuff and you sell it over the next week. The following week, you buy $25 worth of stuff and then you flip it to 100 and then 100 to 4 and then 400 to 1,000 in a month. You've literally used sweat equity and flipped up from $5 to $1,000. And I had an investor, well, she wasn't at the time, but she had watched the live and she started with $100 and she flipped it up to that thousand and
Get
she
out.
started running with it from there. And,
So, for those of you who think real estate investing is out of reach, here's Lee starting only 10 short years ago with $6,000. Another
yeah,
acquaintance of his at the time and possibly probably friend now starting with only $100. So, real estate investing is really approachable if, and I heard you say some important characteristics there. What's the sweat equity piece that goes into it?
being willing to hear no more than you hear yes and still finding a way, you know, um, that's one thing that's really common in my private money lending because I'm an asset-based lender, right? So I look at the deal, and if I don't like the position of the deal, I kind of build guardrails in to the deal to protect myself, my equity. And I explain to them, there are opportunities out there. There's other lenders out there. Just because I might say no or I might not give you the terms that you're looking for, don't mean that you can't get it. So a lot of it is being able to just have that grit and say, all right, I was told no by this person on this day, but it's not always going to be that way. And then you continue. Marjorie, one of the simple things that really kind of changed my life was I was in a sales training for my realtor business. And even though I'd been in sales for years, a guy told me, he said, if you looked up and you were 100 no's away from $50,000, how fast would you get those no's? And I went, pretty damn fast. So we turned around and I started looking at that through cold calling and how do I make my offers? Okay, you told me no, that's fine. Somebody else will tell me yes. And really, that's been the dynamic is the investors or the people that are willing to be told no and continue without discouragement. Those are the ones that you're going to find to be successful. Even the ones that have bad
Yeah,
deals, right? But they don't wash out. They don't go and give it up and decide to
they're
go
not
and
looking
push
for the
another
easy.
business. That's right. If you're willing to put in the work, it's there. Wealth is,
You're
is ready to be made.
So go back to 10 years ago, 10 and a half, 11, and $6,000. What was the
Yeah.
first move that you made? You said you and Catherine's obviously a
My
integral
wife.
part of this
Yeah.
as well. Yes.
Yeah.
But you said, okay, we've got six grand. What was really the first step?
The first step was really a free YouTube course, believe it or not. So
You
it was
attending or you starting?
no, 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 it was me attending. So I just
Okay.
really, I was looking for a sales job, right? And one thing that you've known about me is I was a casino out dealt poker. I've gotten to office jobs. I went into sales, and then I was never afraid to look for another job. And there was a company that had put out, a response to my resume, and it was a real estate training company, and they wanted you to buy their course to then sell it. And I'm not saying that I'm the sharpest tool in the shed, but I will say that I can generally detect a little bit of BS here and there. And I went out there and I started looking online, the reviews for this company. And this guy, to this day, I still credit him, even though I don't know him. He's the one that really changed my life in the sense that he said that the information that you get in this course is amazing. However, it's nothing that you couldn't find at your local library. And I tell people, barely graduated high school. However, I do have a master's degree in Google. So I started going and putting in the work, right? I went to YouTube and I found like how to invest in real estate. And I started looking at these. And I found a course by Phil Putiovsky. His branding is thefreedommentor.com. And he had so much great content for beginners on wholesaling properties, how to do this, how to go out, how to look for these deals, and how to bandit signs, everything. So after about 3 months, I'd come home and I'd put in a couple hours every night, between that and other resources, just gaining every bit of knowledge I could get. And after about 3 months, I closed my laptop, looked at my wife, and I said, I think I'd like to take $1,000 and I'd like to see if I could wholesale some stuff. And she looks at me and says, well, why don't we just go to the bank and see if we could just qualify for a rental property? And, I think I told you before, Marjorie, that, back when my wife met me and we were dating, I had a 450 credit score, right? So I didn't really have a lot to bring to the table, in the sense of financial and fiscal responsibility. So with that, over the years, we've been working on getting my credit up and learning about budgeting and everything else that she had had ingrained in her upbringing that I didn't have in mine. And we go to the bank, and believe it or not, they finance us. They approved us for $150,000. And I asked them, I said, all right, does that mean that I can go and buy just one house? They said, no, you can buy 5 houses, but you just can't exceed a total of $150,000. So that's when we went on the hunt. And at this point, I wasn't a realtor until 2017. So my friend, we own a mobile home park together. We have a few other business interests together. To this day, he was my realtor, and we started going out looking at houses. And we came across this one house that wasn't really fit for living in, and it should have been torn down before it was rehabbed. But as we walk out of it, this was like the seventh, eighth house. My wife was just kind of, saying, that house over there, I wish that was a duplex. And or I wish that was for sale or that was a duplex. It was something like that. And my friend Matt, he looks at it, he's like, well, yeah, it is. It was just listed in the MLS incorrectly. The
Get
realtor
out.
had listed it. Yeah, the realtor had listed it as a single family home. It was a duplex, so it had been overlooked, and they were asking 93,000 for it. So I knew I had the approval, but we end up going in. I'm looking at the numbers, the rents, and everything, and I always go in conservative. Like I tell people, unless you can pay for the mistakes, hedge against the mistakes, right?
And what's
So I
your
would,
nickname?
oh, lowball Lee. So yeah,
Lowball
um,
Lee,
yeah,
going in conservatively.
I'm not
We'll talk
afraid of
about
it,
that in a
man.
minute. Yeah.
Yeah. We ended up getting that property for 67,000 and it appraised for 104. So one of the beauties of that is at the time, the credit union that we were going through would finance us on loan to value. So I was able to go in there and pick up that property and not bring anything out of pocket. So we had put 3,000 into a checking account, right? Little starting reserve account.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't know, it was 3 weeks to a month later, we closed on our second duplex. They were asking 50, we paid 35 at a price of 54, and we were able to 53. We were able to get that one as well without paying anything out of pocket. So I just knew I had the bull by the horns, man. I was ready. I was like, all right, what's next? Then the rule changed. They now had to finance on loan to cost instead of loan to value. So it didn't matter what it was. I was going to have to bring 20% down. And that wasn't really an option for me. To be honest, we didn't have that kind of money. We weren't that liquid, right? So I found more creative ways. I'd inherited some land. My mother, she had passed away in 2014, and I'd inherited about 19 acres. But it was really nothing to speak of. Doesn't have any use. It's mostly wetland. And all that to say, I went to the bank and said, what if I put this up for a line of credit? And if I have a line of credit on this, can I just purchase cash and then refinance with you to get the money back out, replenish my line of credit, and go find another deal? And my banker at the time, Deanna Geisler, man, she is amazing. She's since retired. She was like, yeah, yeah, we can do that. And that's when we just started rolling. And yeah, the rest with a few stories mixed in is,
Yeah.
as they say, history.
You almost make it sound easy. And I know sometimes these things are simple, they're not always easy. There had to be
Yeah.
some hurdles in there that could have stopped you if you
Oh yeah.
didn't do so. Walk me through, what are some of the hurdles you had to overcome, particularly in these early stages, and then maybe we'll talk about some of the ones you face now that you're at scale.
Yeah, a lot of it was the lack of experience and knowing that I had a lack of experience, right? So being willing to go in and ask the questions. I went to the local RIA
Mhm.
meetings. I was asking everybody that would talk to me questions, and
Right.
I would
Ria
try to sit
Ria
there
is
and have
real
that.
real estate investor, just for people who don't know.
Yeah, yeah. We've got local, and most markets do have local real estate investor associations or meetups or something like that. And I would go there and I would just talk to the ones that, have the experience, the people that had 50, 100 doors, and say, hey, look, how did you do this? Where did you start? And at the same time, try to offer them, where can I add value to you? What can I help you with? Right. So that way they would at least not just brush me off, by being what I call an ask hole, right? To where you're always just out there asking for, and asking for.
Like, you
Um,
weren't asking for a complete handout, you were trying to exchange,
some kind of value.
if I can,
Yeah.
yeah. And the other thing, I would say that imposter syndrome
Oh God,
has
yeah.
created more failures or non-starters
Yeah.
than being kind of being an ugly beginner, right? I heard
Yeah.
something once: if you're never willing to be, I don't know if it was an ugly beginner, but you'll never be a graceful, you'll never be a graceful expert. And so, what I'm really hearing is you were willing to be, just kind of that clunky giraffe to figure it out. You weren't kept back by imposter syndrome. Where did that come from? Where did the courage to just learn and do it anyways come from?
From basically the fact that I came from nothing, so it wasn't unfamiliar territory if I went back. I mean, just bluntly putting it like that. And a lot of it was also the drive to succeed because I lost my father in 2007, my mother in 2014, and they were both in their early 50s. So a lot of
Wow.
that really kind of came down to I didn't know if it was genetics, lifestyle choices, all of these different things. What was it that could cause me to have a short life? And I thought to myself, if that is the case, I don't want to leave my wife with nothing. I don't want to leave her with something to where she's now got to go and work two part-time jobs and a full-time job just to get by. I had no retirement, right? So in my 20s, I wasn't really that responsible. I didn't build into a 401k or anything like that. And initially, real estate was just going to be a retirement play for us. And then whenever I got in there and I just started hammering out the deals, then I started thinking that maybe it could replace our day jobs, right? Why not? Why not us? But the
Why
imposter
not
syndrome is
us?
real. Yeah, I've been through that. And anybody that would say that it was easy, if you look at me 11 years ago, I didn't have not a gray hair, right? And
We
now,
can't blame those on
baby,
Catherine. They're more
no,
on real
you can.
estate.
I'd say a solid 1/3 is
Okay.
Kathy, but no, she's actually been that rock, right? To where after the long days or through the long times, that steady hand on mine, right? That kind of keeps it going. So I would tell you that whether it be a life partner, a business partner, you've got to have somebody there that has your back, that's willing to go through the dumpster fires, because anybody's there to celebrate when it's great. But whenever you get a phone call from your property manager and you're 1,100 miles away and you're going off on an anniversary trip, that the news is out in front of one of your properties and there's police there and there was a
Jeez.
murder, you're like, that's where you need somebody to help you out, right? To kind of talk you down and be like, hey, it's going to be okay, you know? So,
Another
and that
lesson.
that happened.
Oh, another lesson I'm really hearing from your story is I've heard the phrase that people often overestimate what they can do in a year, but underestimate what they can do in 10. And it's
Yeah.
absolutely incredible that in 10 arguably short years you've lent out over 7 million, you've got your own personal portfolio of 4.5 million. What kept you staying the course? Because that's another thing. Imposter syndrome holds people back, but also you probably see it. People throw in the towel far too early. If they'd only stayed the course for 3 and 4 and 5 and 8 and 10 years, it
Yeah.
would pay off. What kept you going?
I think it's the ability to be adaptable, and pivot. That was huge for us, to be honest with you, because in 2017 I'd gotten a sales job and this manager was probably the worst manager I'd ever worked for. He was really the catalyst for me getting my real estate license. And over the years, it was more so like I'd reach a point of resistance, and then I start saying, "Okay, what is it that's causing me so much frustration about that? Is it the situation itself, or is it my expectation of the situation and what it should be?" So to be able to pivot and find the path forward was really crucial for us. So I got my real estate license. Since then, I've done over 700 transactions. I'm bordering in on
Nice.
800 at this point. And a lot of the market that I was in was a very, I would say, compared to the national average, very low price point market. I think I told you before, the lowest or the cheapest house I'd ever bought was $10,000, and the lowest price thing that I ever bought was a mobile home for $3,000.
Wow.
So, but one of the things that I explain to people is you still get the same experience, right? You still get a wealth of knowledge with these deals, dealing with these transactions, and learning how to put it together. And it just, real estate for me and the challenges with it just kind of scratch an itch in the back of my brain, that little ADHD trigger, right? That I've got, that it's never boring. And
Right.
I would say that's really one of the things for me is to find a way to look at it with excitement, even in the tough times. It's like, man, is this going to be a good story to tell? And I think
Yes.
that's kind of the fun stuff, right? Especially when you're in a community of people that have those battle stories that you can sit around and be
Yes.
like, oh, you've had that happen too? Oh man. And then you sit there and it's this almost like a village, right? To where people they can see each other, and they can also tell the fakes from the people that have had their
Totally.
scars. So
Laughter really
it's
is
been
the
great.
best medicine.
Oh
And
yeah, yeah,
you have to learn to laugh and have fun through the suck. If you have to grow through that and find the humor, find the joy, because it isn't going to
yeah.
be all sunshine and rainbows. What are one of two of your biggest real estate setbacks, or even just life setbacks? What are some of the things that you can share with other people so that they know, hey, he's not just superhuman, he's
Yeah.
actually really been through some things.
Yeah. I would say the biggest setback was not developing more as a person, right?
Mm,
Because I've found that your business will only grow to the extent that you do. And um, I started that journey probably really more seriously about 5, 6 years ago. And that's when I started finding like calm in the storm. At one point, I was like at 338 pounds. I mean, I was just had no health issue, like no health regard, right? I was just eating fast food on the go, go, running all over the place. My cortisol levels were spiked, and I'd gotten to the point where I was in chronic survival mode, right? Because whenever I'd left my job, I had to replace a pretty decent sales income. And, anybody that's in sales that's decent at it, they can tell you that they make a good living, especially whenever it's, commission based. So,
Right.
with that, whenever I was transitioning from this job into real estate as a realtor, which was going to replace that, I made some really stupid decisions. And one was, not taking care of my body and really focusing on just go, do the deals. And two was ignoring my relationship with my wife. And, as we were going through that, this is how I know she's a real one. Because when we were, going through, I would wake up at like 5 a.m. because this was all a push and a build to transition into full time real estate. I'd wake up at 5 a.m. I'd be in the MLS looking for deals, finding this, trying to get clients. And then at 8 o'clock, I'd be at work, clock in. 10 o'clock, I had my 15-minute break where I'm replying to texts and emails. And after that 15 minutes, I'm back in it till lunch. From lunch, I'm out there doing deals. If I'm squeezing in showings or if I'm in the MLS, anything like that, cramming every available second into real estate that I could. My afternoon break was the same. And then into the evening, I'd get off at 5 and I'd go showing houses till 8, 9 o'clock. Get home exhausted, put some work in, finish up emails, and then I'd do it all over again. And that persisted for a while. One day I was out. I don't know where I was. I was out in the country. All I know is I was pulled over on the side of the road waiting for the showing, right? Because that's one thing about being a realtor is you try to be there early because you don't want to be late. And
Right.
I was calling, checking in with my wife, and I remember this nasty cold gas station burrito that I was trying to wolf down before my showing for
Mm.
dinner. And I heard Catherine say, she's like, I don't know what's going on. I feel like we're just roommates. And man,
Oof.
it didn't take a lot to lose my appetite for that thing because it was horrible to begin with. But I set that down and I realized it was like it hit me like a sledgehammer. I'm building all of this for her, right? And I'm so consumed with that that I'm forgetting that
Mhm.
she's in this with me, right? So I would say that that was probably my biggest realization, was even though the people that you're doing it for might know that you're doing it for them, don't
Mhm.
forget about them at the same time, right?
Well, it's been a common theme with entrepreneurs, particularly when you're starting out, that there is an element
Yeah,
of hustle that is not a 9 to 5. It is very much
yeah.
outside of the hours of 9 to 5, but you're bringing up a great point that we also can't put on the back burner the other things that are significant in our life, our most important relationships, our health. So, you know, imagine talking to someone who's in that hustle phase and they really do have to work long hours. What recommendations, advice would you give to someone? How do you still have the hustle and still keep in the forefront the most important things?
I would tell them stop buying into the Instagram fantasy, right? To where you've got your guru selling courses in front of rented Lambos that they have to turn in before 5 p.m. or they have to pay another day. Get past the illusion and the BS that's really out there. Like I tell people, like I'm not here to be your guru. I've got, my website, I've got a school community. I enjoy doing that and really corralling information into like focus points for people that are truly at it. But man, I drive a Kia Telluride. I'm not out here trying to say, well, I've got a Porsche, I've got this. I don't give a shit what you got. The thing is it paid for? Or is the bank coming knocking after a slow month?
Mhm.
To me, hustle culture builds a certain toxicity, and this
Yeah.
lifestyle creep, right? The more you make, the more you got to go and impress people. And I would tell them to slow down and look and really research who it is. Because whenever I've done some of my speaking engagements, I've actually shown the receipts, like my HUD statements. I've shown my LLC. I've shown where I'm here. right? I'm the guy. And it's more so to let you know that it doesn't have to be flashy to have substance. My wife was able to retire in 2020 during the pandemic. She was working for
Nice.
an oil and gas company, and when the lockdown happened, she was already anticipating getting ready to exit. But I told her, I said, "Hey, hold on. Just give it a couple weeks. Oil and gas probably isn't going to be the best industry right then during the pandemic, so they might do a round of layoffs." And so she even told her supervisor, she said, "Hey, if layoffs start to happen, I'll volunteer. I'm okay." And so she did. So to me, hustle culture where they're going to show you, okay, go pay, thousands of dollars for the suits and go buy watches that you really don't care about and spend time in rooms of people that you don't want to be with just to feel like you're getting ahead.
Yeah, even
I'd
if you
say the
don't,
real
and
freedom. Yeah.
oh,
Oh, go
I was
ahead.
just going to say, even if you don't totally agree with Dave Ramsey's investment philosophy, obviously we're
Yeah.
talking about, but
Yeah.
a lot he does point out that a lot of millionaires drive very average cars. A lot of million because part of their strategy to becoming millionaires and beyond is
Yeah.
never extend above your means. I mean, I had a client one time who was earning over seven figures a year, and this person was in debt well beyond that because even at a seven figure personal annual income they were spending far beyond their means. And so part of what I hear is you're really smart with your money and your time, and you are focused on building. And when you're focused on building, you're not as absorbed and consumed by how do I look to others.
Yeah. Well, and it's again, there's that saying, right? The people that mind don't matter, and the people that matter don't mind.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been in rooms with people that, are way above my pay grade, and that's okay. It doesn't mean I don't deserve to be in the room, and that's
Yeah.
one of the things that people have to get past that, well, if I don't have this and they're going to see me as somebody that's low status,
Imposter
I'm like,
syndrome.
no, yeah, but let your results speak for you. When people go in here and they see the receipts of the returns that you're getting, that you're pulling out 14% capitalization rate on your portfolio because you're able to buy, do the value add, and now you're performing here. You've got low debt service. You're actually 30% leverage across your portfolio. And then on top of it, now you're out here doing private money lending, annualizing between 18 and 22%. They're pretty happy to have you in the room. They don't give a shit what watch you have
Yeah.
on your wrist,
Well, and
So don't, yeah,
maybe
get
you've
out of
seen
that
the
part.
same. Maybe you've seen the same, but I find the people that have built things truly with their bare hands, people who've come from very little, they actually respect people who are showing up, asking questions. They're not judging where that person is. And a lot of times someone helped them get there, and so they're eager
Yeah.
to help someone else, or
Yeah.
be a mentor, be a resource. So I hear both sides of that with you, that you went into those rooms and were welcomed, and then now you're also creating a space for people who were the 10, 15 years ago. You're helping those people now, you're pouring into those people now.
Selectively. And I say that respectfully, because I'm not out here making my living off of courses, and
Sure.
that's nothing against people that have training businesses. Nothing against that. My day is spent doing the deals that I talk about doing. So
Walking the
with that,
walk.
yeah, like I explained to people, I would love to be able to go out here and have conversations with anybody that has any question anytime.
Mhm.
I have to be selective about where it goes and protective of my schedule. Otherwise, I find myself back in the same situation of becoming a
Mhm.
roommate with the person I love the most. And that's non-negotiable for me anymore.
Time prioritization has been a huge theme of all the people I've interviewed so far.
Yeah.
And having a schedule that ensures that whatever you deem significant to your relationships, to your goals, to moving your business forward, whatever you deem significant is somewhat scheduled. Like, we're not just flying by the seat of the pants. How is your schedule changed now versus maybe in those early days of really, burning the candle at both ends?
I pour into me first thing, right? So I don't I used to,
Mhm.
whenever I'd wake up, I'd roll over, I'd grab my phone, I'd start checking messages and emails. Okay, what's going on? What do I have planned today? Now I make a conscious effort to where I start my day. And there's a app that I use called Insight Timer. And it's just a mindfulness kind of app, right?
Very
They've got
cool.
meditations and all these other things. But I start my day with a 5 minute mindfulness and gratitude. And then I do my best to not even open emails or anything else until I've had my time, which typically involves taking my dog for a walk, having my coffee, doing some stretching, and, just really saying, no, this is for me. Because
Mhm.
I kept trying to pour out of an empty cup for so long and it made me miserable. Absolutely miserable. I didn't enjoy people. I didn't enjoy interactions. My stress was through the roof, anxiety, like everything was just going in the wrong direction. And then I started really saying, there's nothing wrong with making me a priority. So setting those boundaries and really learning to love yourself enough to pour into yourself first thing in the day so that you can be there for other people. That's how my schedule has shifted. Because previously it was just always about who else is it that I can, do this for so that I can take a step further in my life.
Right.
So now it's me first and then I'll start pouring into everybody else.
Put your own oxygen mask on first. We've all heard
Yeah.
the analogy, and it's so true. We I love that you said you can't pour from an empty cup. We are whole people, and we can't just be so gung ho in, the business or the money aspect that everything else falls apart, including our health. Let me transition back to, kind of some of the lessons, the on the job lessons that you've learned. Have you ever, I don't know, have you ever had a transaction kind of bite you in the butt? Have you ever had something go sideways that taught you an incredible lesson that ultimately maybe changed how you do business or changed how you
Yeah.
think about things?
Yeah. There was an investor back in Shreveport, and we started about the same time. He had a W-2 and everything else, and he was gung ho. I was gung ho. We were, in there together. And about 2017, yeah, 2017, 2018, I'd had my realtor license. I was out there doing some stuff. And he contacted me. He had bought this 10 unit, and I still tell the story about him, so I don't drop names. But they had really kind of made some mistakes in this. They paid a contractor for the full remodel of the 10 units up front. Contractor never showed up,
Oh,
like scanned him for
ouchie.
$70,000. And it almost put him on a reset, but he went to private money and this guy helped him kind of get out of the situation. But the only exit at that point was no longer a hold option. It was a we sell option. So he
Mhm.
had contacted me and I, started going over there and we look at it, agreed on listing the property, the price, marketed it, got a buyer for it, got it under contract. And as we were selling, they became really upset because their closing costs, the seller's closing costs, were going to be about $500, and they had negotiated about $5,000 in fees or concessions to the buyer. So they were upset because the $500 wasn't in the 5,000 that they
Outside
agreed
of
to.
what they were
That's right.
expecting.
And one of the things that I learned from that deal was not to assume that people know what they're doing, right? Because he always talked a big talk, and I thought that he had had as many properties as me, and I assumed that he had the same level of knowledge as I did. And whenever he didn't understand the cost of selling a property, like the mortgage cancellation, any of these other fees that are going to be ancillary to his side of the sale, I learned that lesson to always check in and do you have any questions? Is there any clarity that you need on this?
Yeah.
Because I am that guy to where I'm very type A. Go, 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 go. Let's get it. Objective done. Great. On to the next deal. And to slow down and check on the people that you're working with because I fear that that damaged, our professional relationship. We had worked together another time or two, but over the years, he got his real estate license and now he's doing his own thing. I'm doing mine. I don't think there's any outright animosity, but I think that, he was probably a little jaded, that I didn't
Yeah.
take the time to explain that. So just in full transparency, I wish that I would have done that.
Yeah, I've heard the phrase that disappointment is unmet expectations, and
Yeah.
people don't know what they don't know, and sometimes we don't know what they do or don't know, but when that disappointment happens, there's always an opportunity to say, like, how can I prevent that in the future. Speaking of the future, what are you excited about? What are you hopeful for? What opportunities are on the forefront for you in the business and private lending and real estate, and what are you seeing?
At this point, I'm just working on getting paid to exist. Just let the universe flow to me, man. Like it's funny how I spent so much time, so much energy, so much effort to force things. And then whenever I start relaxing into it, it's amazing how it starts to fall into place. It doesn't happen without taking action. So with
Right.
that being said, I'm about to start a capital raise. So I'm looking to raise another 3.5 million to 5 million for my fund over the course of this year. We're taking a few cruises. We're going to go on some vacations, but as far as business, I'd say increasing my private money lending. We're also in the process of selling 30 properties off market, and mainly because I'm going to roll that into a couple commercial plays that I've identified. So I'm going to focus on that.
Love it.
Um, and yeah, I think that's really kind of where our year is targeting, but also just enjoying it more, kind of seeing where the road really goes whenever you don't have to control every aspect of it.
That's awesome. How do you balance letting things flow to you while still knowing you need to take action? Like how do you do that intentionally?
I think it's more so being more intelligent about the actions that I take, and understanding the
Love
effect
that.
that they have. So for example, uh, we'll just go with my private money lending. I can go out and I can do a webinar and I can teach people how we flip houses, how to analyze the deals, how to find the deals. And then I've done what? I've increased my lead flow for my private money lending because as these people, the ones that take action, go out here and do the thing, they're going to come back and they're going to say, hey, what's this about you give private money? And it's all asset based. You mean you don't pull credit? You don't do this or that? I'm like, no, I'm actually literally looking at your deal. So immediately, my deal flow turns up. I don't have to go and chase people. Hey, can I go over here and can I give you a term sheet? Can I do this? No, we're not arguing term sheets around here. I already told you where I'm at. I'm easy money. I'm not cheap money. But I also explained
Easy
to you
money,
how to
not
let
cheap
this.
money.
Yeah. Oh, that's kind of my other name, right? So
Yeah.
easy money, lowball Lee, and easy money. Those are
Lowball
the two,
Lee.
right? But that's where I'll turn on the faucet for that. And with
Mhm.
that, now I need to go out here and I need to host dinners and go speak to more accredited investors and explain to them what I do so that they can see if they would like to invest in it. One of the challenges that I have faced is that a lot of investors they're looking for depreciation. They're looking for tax write-offs. And I explained to them that while in the future I may have some syndication opportunities come up with
Mhm.
multifamily or commercial, but right now I'm here to earn. That means that if you put money with me, my goal is to make you money, you know. And sadly, in the lending business, there's nothing for me to depreciate for you. So just get ready to go find your own depreciation plays but if you want money, come to me. So having that conversation with people and
Mhm.
discussing that over and over. I'll be doing a few dinners. I'll be doing a few seminars. But that's really kind of where, aside from that, just trusting that I've done a good enough job, right? Not being perfect, good enough. I'm starting to live by that motto as well. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be good enough.
Yeah.
And with that,
Consistent.
yeah, it helps things. Yeah,
Cuz what I see is people who do really shoot for that perfect. We're in kind of early mid January, so this is
yeah,
the time people go, I'm gonna, new year, new me, and then they
yeah.
want to turn everything around, and they're shooting so high that it's not sustainable. It's not anything they can be consistent at. And even though there's a lot of axioms around good enough isn't good enough, what I think you're really saying is if you can be consistent, you don't have to be redlining all day every day. You're getting, momentum built from the consistency versus that, floor it and pump the brakes, floor it and then pump the brakes.
Well, to your point, so back in October, I did my first 5K, like ever.
Yeah,
And
buddy.
Yeah, well, thank you. It wasn't running. It was a run
Not
walk
pretty,
kind of
but
5K.
done.
That's right. And a lot of that came down to, I knew that being that this was my first 5K, I had no prep. I could either go out of the gate and I could take off running with some of these people that I saw taking off running, and I
Mhm.
knew the likelihood of me finishing was not going to be there. So
Yes.
if I go out there and I run a mile and I turn around and have to come back, all right, great. I was not successful in the 5K. My objective was the 5K. So with that, my friends, my wife, we walked and we walked steady.
Love
We had
it.
some great conversations along the way. And when we looked back at the end of it, we all crossed the finish line. We all felt great about it and we accomplished the goal. So I think that's where the consistency of setting your pace and then running your race, not what other people are doing, that's where you're going to find success.
Totally. And it also highlights the importance of knowing what the goal actually is so that you can set proper
Yes.
pacing for that consistency. Because again, if you had that, keeping up with the Joneses, if you're like, I gotta look good
Oh, yeah.
running, staying with the pack, that's the thing that, can cause burnout or just like I'm over my skis here. So when you're
Yeah.
clear on the goal, then you can reverse engineer it to what are the things that'll get me to finish that goal or accomplish that goal, not what makes me look good to everybody else. So it's really an outward goal focus versus worrying about, what others think too.
There was a quote that came around. It was years ago. There was a comedian, Louis C.K., and
Mm-hmm.
he says that the only time that you should look in somebody else's bowl is to make sure that they have enough.
Oh.
And I thought to myself, that's powerful. Because how many times do we trip over our own feet by looking at the people beside us?
Mm-hmm.
So if I was running that race and I'm sitting here looking at somebody else, am I ahead of you? Am I behind you? Am I ahead of you? The
Mm-hmm.
likelihood of me tripping over my own feet goes up exponentially. So why don't I focus on me? And the rest of it will sort itself out. And that's what I encourage people to do.
Which brings it back to, the race that we're in isn't a race against others. It's really a race our own
Yeah.
lane, our own race. And again, knowing that goal because your pacing is going to change if you're doing a 10K next time or your training is going to change. The consistency needs to change, but it's me against me and what does my best look like in this season? Working on my best. Well, any other 5Ks in your future? Do you see another one?
Believe that we are planning on doing another one. It'll probably be this fall. And a
Okay.
lot of it is just as the opportunity comes up to be willing to take it.
Yeah, I love that. And final thoughts for anyone, where can they find you if they're interested in contributing to your fund, if they happen to need as an investor, if they happen to need hard money and easy money, or if they're curious either about your courses or anything like that, where can people find you the easiest?
A lot of it would be just look me up on social media. It's Re with Lee, so REWITHLEE, like real estate with Lee. And I also have my website, rewithlee.com. So that's really where it's at. Just look up Lee Nugent Real Estate, and I've been successful enough in the branding that I should be pretty easy to find.
You are easy to find and you look like your picture, which isn't
Well, I
isn't
do need to
always
update
the
it. It's like
case.
2 years old. Yeah. Yeah. My latest headshot's like 2 or 3 years old. I need to update it. There's more gray now.
That's funny. Well, Lee, you are such a treat, and I just love your story of building from 6K to everything you've accomplished now. And I think sometimes our go-to is, wow, you're really talented or you're really lucky. And I don't love those as much. While there's truth in, the harder I work, the luckier I get. And sometimes we have
Yeah.
talents or whatnot. What I think the essence of your story and many others is you really were clear on what you wanted, once you became clear on what you wanted, because you indicated you weren't always clear on what you wanted, but once you became clear on what you wanted, you just made yourself an absolute student. You were curious, and you put in the work, and you adjusted consistently. Like when the work got a little out of balance for your other, personal priorities, you adjusted and pivoted. And I think that's the biggest takeaway for all of us is clarity, action, and be ready to pivot. Any final thoughts?
Be firm in the goal, flexible in the course.
Great way to end. Thank you so much, Lee. I've loved chatting with you and
Same here.
appreciate you so much. Take care.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for listening to Relentless Pursuit with Marjorie Dudley. If you want to build discipline, resilience, and results in your own work, that's what I help leaders and entrepreneurs do through coaching, speaking, and training. If today's conversation got you thinking about how you'd like to show up, you can find me through the links in the show notes. Until next time, stay relentless.